Hi, my name's Stuart Lynch, and this is the third video in the Adapty in-app subscription purchase series for SwiftUI. Links to the other two videos are in the description below. In this video, I'll introduce you to the powerful Paywall remote config feature, where you can set values in your paywall that can dynamically change the appearance of your paywall without having to submit a new version of your app to the App Store. We'll also look at creating a second paywall with reduced products to offer your users in a particular scenario. I love getting your feedback, so tap the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video and leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the video and ring that bell to get notifications of new videos. And if you want to support my work, you can buy me a coffee. I'll continue to use the project that we've been working on for the last two videos, so if you've not watched those videos, I highly recommend that you do so. Before we take this to the next level, I want to do what I should have done at the beginning, and that is to organize my files in groups and remove the fixed strings that I'm using for my paywall and access levels. So create a group called Views and make sure that Contacts List View and the About View are members of that group. Also create a group called Models and add Contact and Level to that group. And for the lack of a better name, create a group called Managers and add both the Store and Purchase Manager to that group. So let's create a new Swift file, and I'm going to call it Purchase Info. Inside there, create an enum called Purchase Info. Then create two static string properties, one for Paywall ID, and assign it the string Premium PW. And then the second one, call it Access Level, and assign it the string Premium. Return now to Purchase Manager and replace all three instances of that fixed string Premium with the constant purchaseinfo.accessLevel. Open the store file and create a new published property and call it Paywall ID and assign it the constant purchaseinfo.paywallID. So that's going to be our default paywall. Next, go to the About view then and replace the string for the developer ID in the task with store.paywallID. Now we want to be able to modify our paywall screen and control that from the Adapty side of things so that we'll not have to update our code and submit a new build. I want to be able to change images or colors on our paywall screen whenever I feel like it without having to do that submission to the App Store. So to do that, I'm first going to create a new struct that I'm going to call config. And let me create this above our About view for now. I may want to move it into another file later on. I want to have three properties that I can use for two of our text views and one for our image. And these will all be string properties. So I'll call one header, one subheader, and another one called image. And let's use the strings that we currently have for two of our text views and for our image as the defaults. Now I can create a new state property in About view that I'll call config, and it is an instance of that new config struct. Now then I can replace the values of the corresponding text views and the image with the equivalent config properties. Now I also want to be able to change the color of the buttons and not use that default bordered prominent button style. And looking to the future, where I'm going to use this, just wait and see, I want to use hex values for my color. Now, there is no native initializer for UIColor or color that'll accept a hex string. So I found this on Paul Hudson's Hacking with Swift site, and it's an extension for UIColor that I can add to my project. I'll leave a link in the description below. So copy this code to your clipboard and return to your project. Create a new file in the extensions folder and call it extension plus UIColor. And then paste in that code. And you'll have to change the import to UIKit. Return now to the About view, and you can now define two more properties for my config. One for foreground color or FG color, and one for the background that we'll call BG color. For FG color, for the default, we'll use white, and that's 6 Fs, and the alpha of 1 is another 2 Fs. For the background, I'm going to use the hex for this purple color here, and that is 661F FF, and then again an alpha of 1 for another 2 Fs. Now we can remove our button style and replace it with our own modifier. So we'll set a frame with a width of 175. We'll set a foreground color, which is going to require a color view using a UI color. And that UI color can use the new hex initializer. And that will be our config's FG color. For the background, we'll create a rounded rectangle with a corner radius of 10. But I want to set a fill that will use another color view. And we'll use a UI color, and again, that hex initializer for UI color, but this time use config.bg color. Now both of these colors have to be force unwrapped, so hopefully we haven't made any typos. And let's add some padding, a padding of 5. And let's add that same padding around the labels VStack. Let me test in the simulator now. When I get to my About screen, it looks pretty good. Now let's see how we can make Adapty work for us. So to make this easier, click in front of the header and then hold down the Option key to select only the properties and assignments and copy to your clipboard. So return to your Adapty account and open your Paywall. In the Remote Config section, I want to create a JSON entry that'll correspond to the struct that we just created. And I want to assign some different values to the values of these keys. And then start with a pair of braces, as we need that for JSON. And then just paste in what we've copied. Now this isn't valid JSON. I'll need to have quotes around each of the different properties. So let's do that. And it's not an equal sign that separates the keys and the values. It's a colon. And then we have to add commas between each of the key value pairs. With that done, we can save and publish. Now this information can be retrieved as a dictionary when we get our paywall. And it's the Paywall's custom payload property. We get our paywalls in the About view in the task modifier when it loads. So it's an optional, so we can use an if-let to unwrap it. And then we can update our config variable, which is a state variable, with the values from the dictionary. And we made sure that our dictionary has the same string values as our property. So if let header then is equal to a config, where the dictionary's key is header, and we have to cast it as a string, then we can set the config.header to that header string. Now I can repeat this for the remaining 5 config properties or keys from the dictionary, making sure that we just change and match up with our different properties in our config. If we run our app now, let's see what happens. Nothing has changed. It looks exactly the same. So is it really working? This time, we are getting the config values from Adapty. And let me prove that. Let's return to our config within Adapty and change some values. For example, instead of subscription, I want to replace that with the string upgrade. And then instead of this logo, I'm going to replace it with the Adapty logo. Let's save and publish and test again. And when I get to the About screen, I see those changes are now reflected. This is fantastic. We can change this About view remotely without having to submit a new version of our app. Well, what I want to do now is to extend this power even more by creating a second paywall that we can use if the user has made a monthly subscription, but we want to encourage them to upgrade to an annual one. So return to Adapty, then open your paywall and duplicate it. Call this one Incentive Paywall. And then our unique paywall ID, I'll call Incentive PW. Now we want to remove the monthly subscription and leave just the annual subscription of products. And I'm also going to change the remote config's value for all the keys. The header will be annual discount. For the subheader, I'm going to say, take advantage of the less expensive annual subscription and not worry about it for a full year. For the image, we'll use the premium logo alt. For the foreground color, I'm going to use that purple color, the 661F FF. For the background color, I'm going to switch it up and choose a yellow, and that will be FFD400, and again an alpha of 1, or FF. So let's return back to Xcode now, and then in the purchase info enum, I'm going to create another static property that I'll call Paywall ID 2, and I'll assign it the string Incentive PW. That's the name of our second paywall. Next, we're going to have to know which product was purchased. So let's add 2 new properties. And the first one will be monthly, and to it we'll assign the actual App Store product ID for a monthly subscription. So we can find that back in Adapty or in App Store Connect. And we can copy it directly from our product there to make sure that we don't have any typos. So we'll do that and paste that in as the string for our monthly property. We're going to repeat exactly the same thing for the annual product. Next, in the Models folder, I want to create a new file called Subscription, and I'm going to create a new enum of the same name. And it's going to have just two cases, monthly and annual. Returning now to Purchase Manager, when we check to see if we have made a purchase, I'm going to change this to return instead an optional subscription. And then everywhere where we return the Boolean, I'm going to return nil. Because in the clause where we check our access level, I also want to check to see what kind of subscription I have. And then we can use an if-let to see if the subscriptions dictionary, another property, for each of our different products is active. So we have two products that we can check. The Purchase Info Monthly, and the second one will be the Purchase Info Annual. And then if it is active, we'll return the corresponding subscription. We're returning nil then in all other cases. Let's return to our store then and create a new publish property that I'll call Subscription, and it'll be an optional subscription, and it'll be nil by default, so that we can then update this value once we know what the current subscription is. In Context List View now, we need to no longer check the Boolean return value of the shared function. We need now to determine what the subscription type is, or if it's nil. So we'll use an if-let then to create a subscription type that'll be the return value from awaiting the Purchase Manager's shared has purchase function. If we did receive something back, we can still say that we've premium purchased. We'll set the store level to premium, but we'll also set the store's subscription value to the returned subscription type. When we make or restore a purchase, we want to get the subscription level as well after a purchase or a restore. So for the action button for the purchase, before we set our store level to premium, let's update the store subscription property by awaiting the Purchase Manager's shared has purchase function once again. Then we can set the store level to premium before dismissing the screen. And we'll do the same thing for the restore function. Next, we'll only want to present the welcome view if the subscription is annual. We're no longer checking for our level, we're checking for a specific subscription type. And then in the text view where we present the current limit, we'll want to restrict that to be displayed only if our level is not premium, meaning we haven't made any subscription purchases yet. And then there's one last thing that we have to do before we can test. Just before we present our paywall in the About screen, in the task modifier of that About view, we can check what the current subscription is. If it's equal to monthly, we'll set that paywall ID to the new Purchase Info Paywall ID 2. Let's test. And I'm going to run on a device. You'll see I've entered 3 contacts here, and because I've expired the subscription, I'm seeing the full set of offerings when I try to make a new purchase or open the About screen. So let's make a purchase for a monthly subscription. When the subscription is complete, the About screen is dismissed. I could go ahead now and create new contacts, whereas I couldn't before. But when I open the About screen, I now see that the second paywall is showing, and the annual offering is the only one that's available to me. And notice the different colors of my buttons. This is great. So I'm convinced. Let me make an annual purchase now. Remember, one can only purchase one subscription in a subscription group. So this is going to cancel essentially the monthly subscription and switch it over to an annual one. The purchase is made. So let's check the About screen now. This time I get the welcome screen. Perfect. Now there may be some delay in Adapty recognizing the actual update of the paywall, and there is a function that we can add to an app delegate because we have that notification URL set that will send us notifications that we could respond to immediately. I'll leave that up to you to explore. As you can see, Adapty is very powerful. With a Pro account, you have another option, and that's the ability to convert your paywalls to an A/B test. A/B testing, or it's also known as split testing or bucket testing, is a method of comparing two versions of a paywall to determine which one performs better. A/B testing is essentially an experiment where two or more variants of a page are shown to a user at random, and statistical analysis is used to determine which variation performs better for a given conversion goal. You can check out the Adapty documentation for more information on this powerful feature. Adapty claims that you can double your subscription revenue in 3 months with A/B testing. You can run the monetization experiments faster and cheaper. Well, I hope you found these 3 videos in this series helpful and can see how easy it is to implement powerful and flexible paywalls in your apps to monetize and gain revenue from your hard work.